This video and its contents are for adult collectors.
To a 40-year-old franchise, Windblade is incredibly new. She's only been around for about 10 years, which is crazy to think about now, and she is the first and currently only fan-voted character. Basically what happened was Hasbro put out all these polls and was like, hey, what do you want them to look like? What do you want them to turn into? What faction? What color scheme? Etc, etc. And from that, we got Windblade. The only thing that we didn't really vote on was her theming with the kabuki makeup, but she's been around for 10 years. I have the latest Windblade, this being the Legacy United Cyberverse Windblade, and the first Windblade, this one being the Thrilling 30 or Generations one. And I thought we could kind of compare and look at Windblade through the ages now, or at least these two. Well, I wanted to talk about like some key features that Windblade seems to always have here. One is the sword. You can see this one has the scabbard on the back. This one has its other one kind of sheathed on the hip. Both of them can sheathe them on the hip, by the way. The other is a big prevalence on red. Windblade is always very, very red. You can definitely see that this one has a higher black tone though. Like this one has like way more red. This one has like the big black wings, the black shoulder pads, the black midriff. Like there's just a lot more black on this one than there is this one. And I kind of like these colors more. I prefer when Windblade has a heavier black color scheme. Another thing, she has the fan on the back of her head. That really hasn't changed. Still has the gold accents on the head crest. Something that has changed over time, though, is the amount of blue on Windblade. And I noticed it on the Flame Toys one as well. Windblade initially had this dark metallic blue that kind of traces throughout her on her wrists, up here on the chest, and a little bit on the head here. And you can see on the Cyberverse one, she has this big blue cross on the chest, these popping allspark blue accents on the wrist, on the knees, a little bit on the head crest. So like blue definitely became a bigger part of her color scheme, and it's even on the Flame Toys one where you see more blue. You also see the VTOL wings. She has never been anything but a VTOL jet, which is nice. I'm glad that we're keeping that. We also see the nose cone on the backpack. Windblade does typically have a nose cone backpack. That's almost standard for her at this point. So there's a lot of design choices that really do bring through. We also have the fin on the arm, whether it's more pronounced like this one or kind of subtle like on the other one. She does have a fin on the arm, which is very, very nice to see they kept that. Trouble standing apparently plagues Windblades as well, because this one keeps falling over and this one also does like to fall over. Something that has changed with Windblade throughout the years is the way her makeup is done. You can see on this one, it's a lot more subtle. It's very simplified. It's basically just like a small little bat wing eyeliner with a drip down the side, as well as the mouth curls there. So you can see it's a pretty simplified makeup look for her compared to the Thrilling 30. The Thrilling 30 here has this very huge swoop on the cheek, very elaborate makeup look. She does still have like the mouth lines down there. I think that's like a kabuki thing. I remember seeing some of that on some kabuki makeup looks. Yeah, definitely a more elaborate makeup design on the Thrilling 30. So it definitely seems like they simplified that moving forward with Windblades. And I think I kind of prefer the simplified one. Lore-wise, Windblade has stayed pretty consistent throughout the era. She's almost always a city speaker. She is almost always associated with Metroplex, which I kind of like. Now, I believe there is the bit where she talks to Fortress Maximus in the Titans Return cartoon. She is pretty prevalent in a lot of the cartoons. She was huge in Transformers RID 15. She was big in Transformers Cyberverse. She's like a main cast member there. And then she kind of disappeared for a little bit. She was in those. Oh, and then she was in the Prime Wars show. She was at least in Titans Return, which is like, oh, okay, cool. Glad we're seeing her there. But yeah, aside from those, she didn't show up in Earthrise or Kingdom, which a lot of people were surprised by, because Hasbro was really pushing her. She was a pretty big character in the comics after showing up in her first Spotlight, that being Spotlight Windblade. She did have a pretty prevalent role, usually teaming up with other Caminus-based Transformers like Chromia and Elita 1. Windblade's no stranger to her look changing. You can see on this one, it's a very sleek, very, very feminine, like overly overdone feminine kind of body shape here, which is how Windblade looked in her first appearance. She had this kind of like sleek look, and while she still is pretty sleek on the new one, it's definitely a little chunkier. She has the big blocky boots, which I kind of like, and she has like a broader chest and a lot more like gray and red tones throughout. So definitely a bit of a change from the dark and slick, almost ninja-like Windblade that we see here.
If you like my channel's content, support it with a Patreon subscription or channel membership, links below. Thank you.
One of the biggest improvements I think that has happened is the transformation scheme for Windblade. While they do have similar steps such as the legs folding up, the solidity on this one and just the way that it transforms is a lot better than the Thrilling 30. The Thrilling 30 is clunky and a lot of stuff is just kind of hanging out, and while stuff is kind of just hanging out over here, it is like a little more dedicated onto this one, whereas this one just kind of has bits floating around. That's not to say there's not similarities, such as the molded in landing gear right there with the front one, as same with this one, molded in landing gear with the front one being deployable. So definitely similarities between the two figures. But again, you can also see here the color change, a lot of black. This is almost a full black jet versus a almost full red jet. It's almost like they removed all the black from this one and just and have no red. It's almost completely inverted between the two of them. So with all of that said, which Windblade do we like more? Which one is better? I honestly think that Windblade, as far as the different iterations go, she's worthwhile having the multiple versions. The first one looks a lot more IDW, so if you're into that comic or old generation style, this one is definitely better, but it does still kind of fit in with like Generations and like the Earthrise Optimus Prime. She does look good next to those G1 Autobots because a lot of the designs look good next to this one. It still looks good next to that Chromia too, the original Chromia. If you're looking for something that is a Cyberverse Deluxe, because we didn't get a Cyberverse Deluxe Windblade, we got a Warrior Class one. This is 100% that missing link figure. This is that one that you've been waiting for. I do like both. I definitely think this, as in terms of a toy, I think the new one is better. Like, if you can only get one, I definitely think the new one is a better value over the old one. I think the sword for the new one, I think the accessory is a little weaker. I definitely prefer the original Generations sword and scabbard. Like, that's just such a cool accessory. I think if you want to go for this one, then it's totally valid because it does look good and it looks, in my opinion, more like Windblade. Windblade has looked like this for quite some time. She had the chunky boots in RID, she had the chunky boots in Cyberverse, so this might be more familiar to you, and I think it looks good as well. It looks great next to the Earthspark toys, it looks great next to the Legacy stuff. I like to put it with my Transformers animated things, whereas this one kind of lives on my miscellaneous Autobot shelf. That's not to say it's not a bad figure. I definitely think people give this toy a lot more flack than it deserves. But let me know which one you prefer in the comments below. Let me know if you have either of these in the comments below, and I will see you guys in the next one. Thanks for watching.